Motorsports leads to some of the coolest pieces of machinery ever made, especially in the 80s and 90s. More often than not, to enter their cars in the motorsports series, manufacturers are required to homologate, more on that later, their production cars. Which means that Joe Publics, such as me and you, get to live out their rally fantasies on the road. Road cars like the Mk2 WRX, Lancer Evolution and Escort Cosworth all owe a lot of their adoration to their road-going counterparts and rallying success. But what about the cars that weren't very successful? Unfortunately for us VW fans, Volkswagen back in the heyday of rallying weren't particularly, they were shit. They were good when they had 4 rings on the bonnet, but that wasn't really a Volkswagen now, was it? But it wasn't for lack of trying though. This is the story of Volkswagen's ill-fated attempt at a Group A monster involving high costs, poor results, and even a terrorist attack that brought us one of the most desirable and rare Mk2 Golfs of them all, the Mk2 Golf Rallye. As part of our 50 years of golf celebrations, this is its story. So before we get started on the how, let's talk about the why. And it's possibly my favourite motorsports division of them all. After the famed Group B got a bit too mental and too many people wound up either on fire or in the ground, the FIA, which is the boys at the top who organise motorsports and shit like that, based in France, and they create all the rules and things that manufacturers and teams do their best to avoid following, decided that the lower class, Group A, should take its time in the spotlight. While Group B was effectively no holds barred, do whatever to be fast, Group A, to me at least, was much more interesting. Less power, less aerodynamic aids, and far more resemblance to the car that you actually had parked on your driveway. Reduced costs meant that more manufacturers were willing to enter events, and while you can count on one hand the amount of Group B entrants, Group A had an insane variety. Where on a track you would see Jaguar XJS's in the same racing series as a Ford Mustang and a Mk2 Golf. They also had a much higher homologation requirement, meaning you were much more likely to get a fast road car version of the car on the track. I mean, compare the price and rarity of an early Mk2 WRX to a Peugeot 205 T16. Exactly. Now, back up here, hang on a second. Homologation? What the fuck is that? Well, other Tomo, I'm glad you asked. Homologation is an entry requirement set out by the governing bodies to stop manufacturers from taking the piss when entering motorsports. For example, with Group A there was a requirement that manufacturers must make 5,000 examples of their race car as road-going versions in order to homologate their vehicles for entry. But why would they do that, I hear you asking in your head? Well, it's quite simple. If a manufacturer only had to make 10 of a car, they would go and make something purpose-built for racing at an insane cost and take a loss on each one in order to gain a massive competitive advantage. Which, you know, would kind of detract from the whole sportsmanship of the thing. By making 5,000 of them, it's much more involved. The cars actually need to be something that people will buy, or the whole project could be kaput before it's even started. Group B only needed 200 cars to homologate, which is why it led to fire-breathing dragons that nobody that is a normal person can actually afford. They could have cost the earth and people would still buy them. So, with this lower price of entry, Volkswagen decided it was time for them to make their own homologation special from the humble Golf, which was already a Group A car at the time, and it was about to get the special treatment. Alright, fuck me, that's enough of that, I think. Thanks for that, other Tomo. But yeah, that's right, at this point in time, the Mk2 Golf was actually already a Group A homologated car. It was just neither famous nor very good. It also wasn't specifically made for racing. It was just a bog standard Golf GTI that they decided to try and race at the end of the day. They also tried their hand at rallying with it as well, but again, whilst pretty damn cool looking, was not a success. Which is a real shame whenever its arch rival, the Peugeot 205, was gaining fame and notoriety by becoming a Group A monster and adorning posters in bedrooms across the world. Although, while the 205 had been turned into a mid-engined, four-wheel drive rally monster, the Mk2 Golf still settled for a front-wheel drive, standard-looking car with no turbo, no supercharger, and more at home on tarmac stages than it was at proper dirt rallies. As such, Volkswagen decided it was about damn time that they made something of it. Rallying was in its heyday, and it was time to cash in. They tried Pikes Peak and that didn't work out, and depending on what sequence I upload this video, you'll have either already heard about that or you'll hear about it next time. So hit subscribe to see that one, or hit subscribe after you watch that one, either or. Volkswagen decided that the world was next, and the Golf was gonna need some surgery. Well, how are you getting on? It's that part again where I'm like, well lads, do you want to buy a lot of t-shirts, do you? Would you like to visit the web shop, would you? Well, I'm gonna stop talking like that. Right, we have a web store because nobody sponsors us because we swear and we like fucking about, and because of that we have to do our own thing. So we've got our own web store where we sell cool, unique Volkswagen t-shirts and Mercedes t-shirts and whatever the fuck else takes our fancy. So if you would like to get your hands on something that you're probably not gonna see at another car show or a car meet, this is the place to go. Now each video that we do is going to have its own theme, so if there's a video that you've seen that you've liked, chances are there's a cool t-shirt to go with it. This one obviously is about the Golf Rallye, which again I don't really think is probably that popular on t-shirts. I mean, you're not going to go to Tesco's and see a fucking Golf Rallye t-shirt. You might, wouldn't count on it, but anyway, if you'd like to get your hands on one, please go and check it out. It's how we get the money to buy more shit boxes to do stupid videos so you can watch us hurt ourselves in fields in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, back to the show. So, the Golf Rallye, and I know some of you are thinking, thank God, finally he's getting to the point. Look, yeah, I usually skip the start too, but without getting the start there's no context, and before you know it, you're asking why the plumber was even there in the first place. Storytelling is important. Anyway, to begin with, Volkswagen took the two-door hatchback, likely already with the Synchro setup, because Synchro was available, which was their four-wheel drive system at the time. Next up was the running gear, and the standard GTI setup just was not going to cut it. The 16 valve was already proving a bit sluggish on the world stage, and forced induction was the way to go. But despite this being the era of the turbo, Volkswagen for whatever reason preferred sticking their turbos on diesels, and pushed hard for superchargers on their petrols. Or compressors, as Germans love to say. So rather than a turbocharged 16 valve, Volkswagen went for a supercharged G60 8 valve engine, which was good for a whopping 160 horsepower, which is massive compared to the road model's 112 horsepower in a standard 8 valve. Also juicy was the gearbox. Rather than your standard rod change setup like URI's 020 box, implying that you also have a Mk2 Golf, the Rallye got cable change, giving it a gear change that wouldn't feel out of place in something 30 years newer. It wasn't just mechanically the car received some changes either. A rally car has to look the part after all, and taking some inspiration from its Ingolstadt stablemate, the Quattro, it received some boxy flares to widen the track, and the new grille and headlight setup unique to the Rallye. I'm glad it was unique to the Rallye because, frankly, I don't like it and think it would have looked infinitely better with the four lights on the front, but whatever, I guess. Inside, it was a standard Volkswagen Golf GTI affair. A high-spec one, mind you, but it wouldn't be till much later that Volkswagen decided, oh yeah, we should probably make our special models feel special. So for the Rallye, it's virtually indistinguishable from a standard GTI, save for more expensive seats. And of course, like every fucking cool Volkswagen we share on here, they never came in right-hand drive, because fuck us, I guess. Now, as you can expect, adding all of these fancy things to a car brings one downside. Cost. A lot of cost. As in, you could buy two decked out standard Golf GTIs for the price of a Rallye, or a Golf GTI and a Golf Turbo Diesel, and enough money to run them both for a year. This meant then that for something that wasn't a guaranteed success on the world stage, it was a bit of a hard sell for the higher ups at Volkswagen. There was one man though who was all for it. Volkswagen of USA President James Fuller. Thanks to him, the ball got rolling over in the States, which initially was going to have nothing to do with it. And 2 got sent over for testing, and 5 more got sent over for, well, general evaluation, I guess. Here, look at this, isn't that cool? Yeah, class. Unfortunately, something completely unprecedented happened during the testing phase. James Fuller was killed in a terrorist attack on a plane that flew over Lockerbie, Scotland in December of 1988. I know this is usually a very light-hearted channel, but this is a bit of a heavy-hitting topic here, so we're just going to put any of the jokes aside for a second, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, because there's tons of information out there if you want to go and look it up, but this, I'll be honest, this shit's not entertaining, it's a little bit heavy, so advance warning there. Yes, terrorism. PanAm Flight 103. Now, you might have heard of this. My parents had whenever I mentioned it. This was the deadliest terrorist attack in the history of the UK, with 270 fatalities. This unfortunate event was a result of Libyans planting a bomb on a Pan-American Boeing 747, which was leaving Germany to land in Michigan, with 2 stopovers on the way. After leaving its first stopover in London Heathrow and heading for its second stop at JFK International, at approximately 7 PM above Scotland, the bomb detonated and the plane exploded, crash landing near the town of Lockerbie in Scotland. Sadly, everybody on board and some people on the ground perished. There are lots of write-ups on this. I think there was even a BBC documentary, so you might want to go and, if you're interested in it, you might want to go and look that up. There were lots of people on board. James Fuller obviously was one of them, and the guitarist from Cockney Rebel was on there. Him and his wife were going on a honeymoon, and well, they never made it. It's fucking grim. So if you want to look up, work away, but we're not going to get into too much detail on this one. So with the Golf Rally's main campaigner in the US sadly no longer with us, the Golf Rally was then vetoed by Volkswagen higher-ups. It never saw the light of day in the States, which also may have led to it not getting that popular. And sadly, that's not where our bad news ends, because the Golf Rally rallying, it just wasn't very good. And, well, you see, that's because while 160 brake horsepower may seem like a lot, what we didn't talk about earlier was the increase in weight, which is pretty important in a performance car. 4-wheel drive setups are ridiculously heavy, and the Golf Rally actually wound up not being much quicker than the standard Golf. To be fair though, considering the competition at the time, it's not a massive surprise it wasn't a huge success. Rallying against the giants like Lancia and Toyota, who were getting into their prime, I mean Lancia just dominated fucking everything, the Pro Golf Rally managed a measly 10 points in the 1990 season. Now that might not mean much to you, but for context, Lancia came first with 137 points. Toyota came second with 131. Volkswagen got 10. So yeah, not exactly gleaming. All of Volkswagen's hard work came to naught, and the Golf Rally would eventually fall into obscurity. But today, it's not all bad news. People adore the Golf Rally. While still relatively unknown in the grand scheme of things, in Volkswagen circles the desirability and value has skyrocketed. While still not £100,000 cars like some of its other rally companions of the time, they're certainly on their way there. It may not have been a success, but the Golf Rally paved the way for Volkswagen's later road warriors, namely the R32 Golf and future R cars, which became a massive sales success and still are to this day. It may have had a difficult, emotional and frankly disappointing upbringing, but now the Golf Rally shines as one of the coolest, most desirable Mk2 Golfs ever made. So, that's been the Golf Rally. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. I know this was a bit of a heavy hitter, and a lot of people don't like to hear about how the Golf Rally wasn't actually that much of a success, because they probably went and spent a lot of money on buying one, and they like to think it's the greatest thing in the world, but it really wasn't. Probably because of the grill and the headlights. Nah, I'm joking. But they are stupidly damn cool. Just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's tuned in. I thought this story was fascinating and they needed to be shared, so if you want more info on it, there is more information out there. It's just not really the tone for the channel. But yeah, thank you so much. If you want to support us, buy some t-shirts please. They're on our site there. This one has got, well, I've probably explained it already. I'm rambling now. Yeah, thanks very much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. I've been Tomo, this has been 427 Motorsports, and good luck.